Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Creative Spirit Podcast, a podcast in which we explore the various missions and activities of some of the fantastic Catholic businesses out there, especially the ones that work with Catholics for Hire. My name is Will Dethridge, the founder and CEO of Catholics for Hire, and joining me is John Knowles. Great to have you, sir.
It's an honor, Will. Nice to see you.
Yeah, now you've been involved with several fantastic Catholic upstarts, companies, causes. Could you just introduce a few of them, even just list some of them off that you've been involved with?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Will. I think that the real turning point for me professionally was in late 2008 when I crossed paths with Tom Monahan and his Ave Maria School of Law initiative back in my home state of Michigan.
Oh, wow.
And, I'd been doing, some, I guess, clock checking work and in the secular world and paying the bills, but just not really feeling like I'd found my inspiration, my purpose, and my cause. And when I realized what Mr. Monahan and his team were doing with Ave Maria and the associated family of apostolates and organizations, it really opened up a whole new world to me. That you could be involved with something that was serious and ambitious and aspirational and governed by a desire to score big wins and accomplish things, but also deeply rooted in our Catholic faith and in the great traditions of Western civilization in our country. It was patriotic and celebrated everything that the United States stands for too. So it was a great fit for me, and that led me to a career in external affairs and fundraising. First as the Development and External Affairs Director at Ave Maria School of Law,
Hmm.
helping to move the school from its original home in Michigan to Naples, Florida, or outside Naples, Florida, where it is today. My wife Jennifer and I packed up boxes on both ends of that move, and helped establish things in Southwest Florida, and then embarked on a great adventure over the next few years, introducing the law school to the people of Florida, raising a lot of money for scholarships and other good causes at the law school, and promoting its noble mission. And I stayed in fundraising for years at a number of different private institutions and entities. And then in 2015, I had the privilege of being named Legatus Director for the Northeast International. I relocated to Southeast Pennsylvania in the Delaware Valley about 10 years ago now, coming up on 10 years ago. And as Legatus Director for the Northeast International, I had the awesome privilege of stewarding Legatus's membership from Virginia to Maine, and also international members in Ireland and Vancouver, British Columbia, and a couple other places too. We started many new Legatus chapters, nearly doubled the size of the region's membership, and just brought a lot of good people into that great organization whose purpose is about as good as it gets. It takes Catholic CEOs and corporate executives and creates a community where everybody grows in their faith and grows closer to each other as brothers and sisters in Christ, and dreams up great things for the world. And it was really just a wonderful thing to be a part of that. And in the past couple of years, I've focused my efforts on being the executive director of the Diocesan Fiscal Management Conference, the membership organization for a diocesan senior level executives, CFOs, chiefs of operations, chancellors. It's an integrated auxiliary of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, founded 54 years ago. Very well established organization whose charge is to create a faith-based community of these executives serving the Catholic Church and help them grow professionally and spiritually. I've also for the past coming on 4 years been the president of the Catholic Finance Association based here in New York City. That's the membership organization of wealth managers, financial advisors, investment bankers, Wall Street people, financial professionals broadly defined. I stay very busy, but my most important job, I assure you, is being husband to my wife Jennifer of the past 14 years, the only pretty girl that ever gave me the time of day, and raising our two children. That's the overview of my life, I guess.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for sharing.
You're
And
welcome.
anyway, for people who don't understand or don't know, Tom Monahan, he was I know he's CEO. He was also founder of Domino's
Yeah.
Pizza, right? Yeah, and ended up getting into philanthropy, founding Ave Maria, fantastic man. He's done a lot of great. So it's really
Hey,
cool
Will,
to
if I
hear.
could, if I could jump on that just real quick, there's a great EWTN video that was just published in the past week.
Oh
It's
yeah.
only 10 minutes long, 9 minutes long, actually, telling the story of Tom Monahan's life. Please, if your viewers could please check that out, just Google it or find it on social
Yes.
media. They did such a good job with that, and it is one of the great American stories. It's one that you
Hmm.
don't have to be Catholic to respect. I mean, this guy was born, less than poor. He was in an orphanage, really humble circumstances, kind of a tough start in life, and just through his personal force of will and his faith in God and the generosity of some people, especially religious sisters, as he'll share in his story. I mean, he lived the American dream. He served his country in the Marine Corps, started a great business, which became $1 billion business and an industry leader, and did it all young enough to give all his money away to charities and causes that he's passionate about and serve others. It's one of the great stories that our country has ever produced, and I hope everybody can learn about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I actually saw a little bit of the documentary and Family at EWTN on the other day. So I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's Ave Maria, and I was explaining to my parents like, yeah, that was the CEO of Domino's Pizza on there. So fascinating story for sure. Definitely encourage people to check it out. Now, going back to you, could you tell us a little bit more about the Catholic Finance Association? I know you mentioned that it involves a lot of people who are executives or into finance on Wall Street, but also are united by the Catholic faith. Can you tell us a bit more about what the association does?
I'm happy to do so. The Catholic Finance Association is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization. Its mission is to evangelize the finance community through programs and education on Catholic social teaching, and of course, community amongst their peers. We hope that Catholic finance professionals in New York City and beyond will become more active in their practice of the Catholic faith, or perhaps become Catholic or revert to the Catholic faith in the first place. And we do that through an array of really well presented programs every year, most in person, some virtual. And of course, my podcast, the Faith and Finance Forum, which is a podcast that showcases a leader who's doing important work at the intersection of faith and business. So the CFA was founded in New York City about 12 years ago by a real inspired leader named Jeff Smith, who's a good friend of mine and my brother and somebody who I love a great deal. Jeff is a finance executive himself and a convert to the Catholic faith from an evangelical upbringing. And Jeff is just passionate about evangelizing business leaders through the Catholic Finance Association, Legatus, and the other organizations he's active in. And he and I have an interesting background. We both went to this little school in Michigan called Western Michigan University, which probably nobody has heard of. But Western Michigan University outkicks its coverage and has a great program in a number of different disciplines, especially in business. And Jeff and I have this in common too. We both served as student body president at Western Michigan, which is crazy. He was about 8 years before me as the student body president, and here I was, 8 years after him as the student body president. And we both end up doing stuff in New York City and trying to bring people closer to the Lord. And we just had so much in common, so we hit it off instantly, of course. So the Catholic Finance Association holds these events that focus on a topic related to the work of finance executives, but always with the Catholic layer, always with the goal of bringing in the Catholic perspective on it. And I think we did that very effectively with our event earlier this month, which was an ESG throwdown, in which we had two very strong Catholic leaders, Richard Fontes from the Boston area, who is favorable to ESG and thinks it's a very good thing, and Chris McMahon, who's more of an ESG skeptic, has some concerns with ESG. They're both super accomplished guys. They're both smart guys, both passionate in their positions, and both practicing Catholics. So we had them come together with this debate, which was facilitated by just an amazing woman named Catherine Flax, who's a Wall Street veteran and icon, former chief marketing officer at JP Morgan. And she provided, just a really steady hand in that debate, making sure all sides were heard, but also all sides confronted each other, and that was good. That was good and healthy for the debate. So that's an example of it. I mean, Richard had the chance to say, look, ESG is very compatible with the teachings of the Catholic Church, and here's why I believe that. Chris McMahon conversely got to say why ESG is problematic for practicing Catholics and why we should be concerned about it. But I think in the course of that conversation, our members got a great opportunity to hear all sides and come to their own conclusions. and be better educated on it. You don't get that elsewhere in the media world. It seems like depending on which outlet you tune into, it's either ESG is orthodoxy and gospel and can't be questioned, or ESG is satanic and horrible and
Yep.
a total fraud and sham, etc. I mean, both those perspectives are interesting, and I'll consume them. But when do they ever talk to each other? I mean, that's the way it used to work in our country. We used to have people that from different perspectives actually have to confront one another and talk through their differences and listen to each other and maybe come up with a way that in a pluralistic, diverse society we can all live together. Look, I have my own views on almost everything, okay, and they tend to be pretty strongly associated with the teachings of our church, with the founding principles of our nation. A very conservative person, and that's part of who I am. But I have to share this big, beautiful country with people that have widely different views on everything. And that's okay. I'm all right with that. You know what I mean? I don't want my orthodoxy to rule in every area of life. I just want to have a fair shake. I want to be able to share my views on things and have a chance to convince my fellow citizen that I have a point, and I want my neighbor to be able to do the same. And I guess that's where my concern with phenomena like cancel culture and kind of the silencing of certain voices in social media and other outlets. I'm deeply concerned with that because I think it's undemocratic and anti-American, and I think ultimately it'll weaken our society.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I think that open dialogue and free speech are the cornerstones of any free society. Before we can even talk about being a marketplace for business, we have to be a marketplace for ideas. Now, for some of those who might not know, ESG stands for environmental social governance, and there's a huge debate going on in business about whether or not businesses should be engaged in practices and make decisions based on environmental and social policy. And as you were saying, John, there's some businesses out there who think that they should be beholden to mechanisms that foster interest in things like the environment and social justice. And then there's other ones out there that say no, businesses should only care about the bottom line. It should only care about shareholders, because if they get involved in things like social justice or environmentalism or causes like that, uh, they're going to forget about the needs of the shareholder, and they're just going to become attached to a specific ideology like that. So to know that CFA is offering a platform for Catholics to have those kinds of conversations, and even people who are just interested in the Catholic Church to have that kind of conversation, is very valuable. I think one thing I've noticed is Catholic institutions anymore are providing a bastion of free speech and open dialogue. The great thing about the church and a lot of Catholic schools is we're the ones hosting interesting conversations. We're the ones where people aren't being afraid of getting canceled anymore. It seems to be the more secularistic slant that's really eager to silence a lot of voices, where these Catholic institutions, universities, publications are the ones that are doing an excellent job at stepping up and having all these fascinating dialogues between people. So I think there's a huge opportunity for the church to be a bastion of free speech and dialogue between people, right?
Yeah, I love that, and I mean, let's just explore that for a second. I mean, look at what happened at Stanford University earlier this year at the law school, which is frankly, frequently rated the number one law school in America. We have, Judge Kyle Duncan, appellate court judge, one of the highest ranking judges in America, invited to speak to a group of law students. And when I was in law school, appellate court judge comes. Doesn't matter if they're the most liberal judge or conservative judge or whatever. That's an honor for a law student to be in the presence of an appellate judge and to learn from him or her and consider her idea, learn from her experience. Digest some of those lessons. I mean, what an honor. Your viewers should go back and look at that video of the way this judge was treated. I mean, like it was so disrespectful. It was so obnoxious. An administrator from the law school actually joined forces with the hecklers and was also extremely rude to the judge. I'm not sure that he was even able to deliver his remarks because the fury and the venom of the response was so out of control. So that's what you're seeing, in secular institutions now, and frankly, it's everywhere. I mean, there's so many examples of it. It's impossible to even isolate. And then you have what you'll encounter in a Catholic, institution, where that would never be tolerated. I mean, it just would never happen. Nobody at a Catholic school, behaves like that. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a genuine, open, education where you can really explore all ideas, I mean, like, I mean, it genuinely is in an open setting, where all perspectives can be considered. That's what you're going to encounter at a Catholic university, in today's world, and I think that's what we all want. I mean, our failure to the youth is not that they're not informed on the great cause of the day, or the needs of the less fortunate or whatever. I think the way that we're failing our children most is that we're not teaching them how to dream, we're not teaching them how to aspire for greatness, and we're not teaching them how to critically think. That's what I would like to see. I don't mind if you disagree with me, but if your disagreement is as deep as saying, well, you're a racist, or, well, I can't control my emotions, so I'm just going to go crazy and not let you talk. That's where I have a problem with it. Let's hear it. I mean, if you have a different viewpoint, or if you think there's a weakness in my argument, as long as you're calm and reasonable and respectful, I'll listen to you all day. I won't even talk. But when you behave like that, I think you're really doing damage, especially to the youth, and those law students that I mentioned in that classroom. I genuinely feel bad for them, because they had a chance to learn from one of the great legal scholars and legals, leaders of our time, and they missed out on that because certain people couldn't control themselves.
Well, on that note, it's pretty disheartening sometimes to kind of see that behavior going on. There's a lot of really good, hardworking people in this country, and it kind of seems like uh, those people who can control themselves and do want to foster that kind of dialogue and conversation can so easily be intimidated by this mob mentality. Like I said, it's not even often the fault of these kids. It's so we haven't really taught them how to engage in dialogue. They haven't been taught how to confront people, to critically think, or basic things like that. Um,
Well,
but
how about this too? I mean, how about just like a lack of love? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, I mean, like, that's the most basic element of any society. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I disagree with you, but I love you.
hmm
And just because I'm going to listen to you doesn't mean that I'm agreeing with you, or being subservient to you,
right,
or bowing before you. I love you because you were created in the image of God, and I want to hear your thoughts. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to agree with them, but
yeah,
I respect you and I love you enough. That's I think the missing element of our society basically is we forgot how to love each other. How to
mm,
love our neighbor like we love ourselves. We don't even talk or think about that anymore. I think that's what we're missing.
yeah. No, I agree. In the face of that, one thing I see a lot is just a lot of Catholics, especially young ones, who they want to embrace that mentality, and they want to be good Catholics in business, but they just get so worn down by all this chaos that's going on around us. Eventually, a lot of people are broken down by whether it be literally getting shouted down at an event, like some speakers are, or if it's just years of being treated pretty badly by their peers. So being involved in Catholic business like you've been, I'm sure every now and then you've kind of had that feeling of, oh gosh, why am I doing this? Like I could be like, an executive at Google, and sip on wine at Twitter headquarters or something like that. Um, how do you manage, you know, those kinds of feelings when they come up, if they come up, and what advice would you give to young Catholics who want to retain their Catholic faith, or even just retain that sense of love and compassion for other people in a world that's just increasingly hostile to what we believe in?
Gosh, Will, this is such a beautiful question, and you got a great show here. Thank you for your thoughtful
Yeah,
inquiry. So,
thanks.
I mean, a great question. So, it helps to read the Bible. in the New Testament, and to study the sacrifices of the early generations of Christians, some of whom had resources, some of whom came from wealthy or middle class families, all of whom had great personal ability that could have been applied in other places, but their passion was for filling out the Great Commission, which was to spread the gospel in every direction and to bring souls to Christ. And they were willing to give up their entire lives and ultimately give up their lives themselves to pursue that. And so I think that what our generation, or I guess I'll say my generation and your generation and the ones to come, increasingly they're going to be looking for a sense of purpose in a world that is more and more materialistic and shallow and vapid. We're going towards a future kind of displayed in the Disney movie WALL-E, where we all kind of float around on chairs, overweight, sipping food from straws, with screens in front of us, looking for the next entertainment to come across, like just kind of wandering through space, literally not knowing what life is about. I mean, that's the future that some would chart for humanity. I oppose that. I think that is a bad thing. I think that obsession with technology and that materialism, that consumerism is a negative thing. And I think that in the church, and especially in the history of the church, people that are looking for purpose will find it. In that God is real, Jesus Christ is real. The work of Mary and the saints and everybody affiliated with the church is genuine. I mean, the people that knew Jesus Christ knew that he performed miracles, knew that he was the Son of God, knew that he came to the world to teach us, and believe that so fervently, they give up everything to do it. So, I guess in terms of how that applies to us, I mean, yeah, being an executive of Google, I think that's great. But why are you doing it? I mean, is it to have more square footage on your house? Is it because you need to buy the latest Porsche that came out? I mean, when does all that stuff ultimately not become enough? And what do you actually want to leave to the world? I mean, like if you believe that our country and our society are going the wrong direction, like some 80% of our people do, that's across the board. That's liberals, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans, woke, non-woke. I mean, everybody believes that, there's something deeply wrong with our society, yet none of us are willing to confront what it actually is. And that's that people have no meaning. They have no sense of purpose. And we don't instill that in our youth anymore either. So I guess what inspires me and what lifts me up and gives me a sense of pride in what I do is that I know that every day I'm challenging that. And I know that if I can help strengthen the faith of people or lead them to faith in the first place, there's a good chance that they'll have more fulfillment and purpose in their life, and hopefully direct our civilization, our society back in a positive way. That is the professional calling of my life, secondary only to my responsibilities and my family.
No, that's a wonderful answer. I appreciate you sharing your insight there. One way I always think of it, and I was taught to believe from my parents, is it's like building spiritual muscle. We're given a lot of these challenges that really stretch us. They're really tough, and a lot of people can't handle it. But if you can pick up those weights, the weight of society, I guess, and work with it, and like you said, approach it from a loving Catholic perspective, um, you're going to grow. It's going to hurt, but you're going to grow, and it's things we can't avoid confronting. I mean, we live in one of the wealthiest societies in human history. I mean, in my opinion, the wealthiest. Like, our lifespans are generous, compared to the rest of the history of the human species. We have so much at our fingertips. I mean, like, just what you get for your dollar or other currency in other countries is just astonishing. I mean, global hunger, there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's done a pretty remarkable job at getting that down. Yet we feel so empty, especially in first world countries. We have so much, but so little on the inside. It's amazing. Just that. It seems almost paradoxical, but that's the thing is if we don't have a relationship with God and we don't focus on manifesting that relationship through loving our neighbors, then we really don't have anything at all, you know. So um, I'll ask you one more question before we close off this podcast. And by the way, I forgot to mention that that's actually the principal work that we do with you guys. We do a lot of podcast editing for that Faith and Finance Forum, which we definitely encourage our listeners to check out. And we do some web development for you guys as well. My last question: what are some things that you learned throughout your time in all these ventures, especially CFA, that you kind of wish that you could go back in time and tell your younger self, keep this in mind, or any advice that you'd have for young Catholics in business or entrepreneurs, or maybe even some words of encouragement or assurance where, if you could go back to a time when you were really stressed as a Catholic business person and say, hey, it's going to be all right and here's why. What would you say?
The most important thing, I think, is to discover what you really really want to like give to the world. You know what I mean? And I've always believed that at conception, at the very beginning of our life, we're given some gifts by God, and they're basically the seeds of talents. You know what I mean? The things that we're good at, and everybody has them. Nobody is without them. Everybody had something for whatever reason that they were bound to be, pretty good at. You know what I mean? And so, in exchange for that gift that you were given by God, your responsibility is to nurture that, to invest in that, to actualize that, to develop the skills and the capabilities around that. One, just to provide for yourself and your family financially, but also to eventually give back to the world. So that's your end of the bargain. Is to take that gift and to make it into something that is you can do good for yourself and good for others and glorify God. So I wish that young people thought and reflected and prayed on that more, and then developed strategic plans around that, which becomes I guess, the beginning of their life's journey. And that first job out of college or out of graduate school or whatever, I think the most important thing is to hook up with a good organization, a good boss, or if you're going into the world of entrepreneurship, have good mentors and good people around you to guide you. Really study their character. Really try to get to know them personally. If they're unwilling to do that, ask. If they're not willing to do that, it's probably not a good fit. But try to get as deep and personal as you can about who they are and how they lead and what it's going to be like working with them. That means a lot more than, I guess, like base salary or benefits or anything like that, especially in the beginning, because that entry point, that first job is going to color a lot of what follows after that. And I guess just a sub point to that, don't rule out the world of entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? Even if it's something small. I mean, Tom Monahan got started with a newspaper stand, and then ultimately went in with his brother and bought a very small pizza shop, an inexpensive pizza shop. The world of entrepreneurship is such an exciting one, and especially for somebody who I think is wired like we are, and many of your listeners are. That's where a lot of the opportunities, especially in the future, are going to go. The old world. I'm from Detroit. Everybody in my family worked for one of the big three auto companies. That was a good life. There's nothing wrong with it, but it was very kind of I guess predictable and bureaucratic and risk avoidant. That world is gone. In the future, it's going to be about people like you, Will, starting up companies from scratch and serving people well and living with integrity, presenting products and services that the marketplace cries out for. So I hope more of your listeners will consider the world of entrepreneurship.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for those words of insight. And one more quick question. Is there a particular saint that you look to for wisdom or that's really inspired a lot of your activities, or even a patron saint of any of the companies that you work with that you really look up to?
Man, there's so many. I think every Catholic should start with Mary. And that's not just rhetoric. I mean, like, really get to know Mary, really,
I agree.
pray your rosary every day, like be devoted to her, have imagery of Mary around your house or apartment. I mean, that's where every Catholic should start. aside from Mary, St. Thomas More speaks to me a lot for a lot of reasons, given his background in the law and in administration in public service. So his courageous stand at the end of his life, saying to the king, at his death, I die your servant, but God's first. That's just for anybody who's involved with public service or the law or government, that should be their, kind of what they aspire to. Saint John the Evangelist, the apostle, is my patron saint. Christ's best friend, the apostle that he loved, the one who was loyal to him throughout his life and loved Mary. And I'm inspired by that. There's just so many. I mean, today is the feast of Saint Peter and Paul, and for anybody that is involved in evangelization and service to church like you and I are, Will, I mean, Saint Paul is such a great role model for us as the great evangelizer, who took the word of God everywhere, and was a really gifted creator of Christian community, like I think we're trying to do. He speaks to me too, and I could go on, but the stories of the saints are such an important part of the deposit of faith, and they should be studied every day.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, John, for coming on the podcast. And again, we recommend people check out your website, CatholicFinanceAssociation.com, and your podcast, the Faith and Finance Forum, which you can find on that website. Thanks, John, for your time.
Well, thank you for your brotherhood and friendship.
Of course. And thank you all very much for listening to another episode of the Creative Spirit podcast. We hope you have a great day. God bless you, and keep following our series for more great Catholic entrepreneur and business stories.